All right. Hello, everybody. Hey, we are in Hebrews 6, kind of verses 9 through 20. I'm going to focus mostly on 13 through 20, because that's where we were uh, stopped off last time. But the topic tonight is, whoa, got to tuck that cord in. The topic tonight is hope. Hope. And I think the PowerPoint slide, either the title slide, when it gets posted, will say a sure hope. So, of course, what am I talking about? Brown Super Bowl chances! Woo! A sure hope. I am so excited for the NFL season to get started. I really like football. I was watching preseason football last night. You know you're desperate when you're watching preseason football. Um, but it's so exciting. And of course, being a Browns fan, we are experts in hope, and hope's crushed. And, you get excited for a couple of weeks, and then typically, actually, I think, Kyle, I remember you saying this last time about feeling unfamiliar because, like, they were actually doing well. Like, wait, my hope is not being crushed yet. What's happening here? Oh, wow, that's bad. Okay, I'm going to keep talking once I get my paper. But anyway, that is hope. A new school year is starting, right? Kent State, movers and groovers and shakers and bakers and whatever else. And shake and bake. There's so much excitement about a new school year. Lots of hope there, right? Good stuff. We're going to talk about hope tonight, but actually, we're not going to talk about a new school year or the Browns. We're going to talk a more sure hope than those things. But before I get into it more, I'm going to go ahead and pray again. Father in heaven, I pray that you would be with us tonight. I pray that you would speak your word to your people here tonight. I pray people would be hearing you call out to them to explain the hope that they can have, the sure hope they can have in you, and to turn away from all the false hopes that the world offers, to turn away from despair that people may be under as they're feeling hopeless. I pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, so you know how I blame my computer sometimes? I don't have my computer, but I have papers that are blowing away, so now I have an excuse again. It was great. Feel a lot more comfortable. All right. So I'm going to talk about three things. Do we need hope? Is there hope? What is the hope? And then I'll just wrap up by saying, okay, what is that? What is the outworking of that hope? But do we need hope? Is there hope? What is the hope? And do we need hope? So we're in the book of Hebrews, and Hebrews is really a book of exhortations. Like, hey guys, come on, get with it. It's really like a book of warning. Like, hey, don't miss this. This is about a great salvation. Don't miss it. God has spoken in many ways and many times, but in these final days, he has spoken through his son, Jesus. His son, don't miss it. Don't hear about this and then move on. It's a warning, an exhortation. And then there's like some charges, some challenges to his own people saying, don't give up. Don't become dull, like Adam was talking about last week. Be mature, grow into maturity. Verse 10, Adam covered this, but I want to read it now. Verses 10 through 12. It says, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. We want each of you to show this same diligence to the very end, so that what you hope for may be fully realized. We do not want you to become lazy, but to imitate those who through faith and patience inherit what has been promised. So again, some more charges here. Be diligent, work hard, be diligent all the way to the end. Don't be lazy. Imitate those heroes of faith and patience. Why should we pay attention to these charges? They sound pretty difficult. Maybe if you're feeling like, hey, I'm a winner today, you're gonna meet those challenges. But maybe you're not feeling like a winner today. Maybe you're feeling like life has got you beat down. You're like, great, just what I needed. Some more things about don't be lazy and work hard, and I've been failing. And even if we don't feel that way today, certainly those days come, right? But yet, this is what the book of Hebrews, the author of Hebrews, is telling us. And he knows it's challenging, but he's going to come with some great encouragement. And actually, that's how Adam's teaching ended last week. But this is what we're doing tonight, is continuing on that encouragement. And I want to skip to the end of this passage, of verse 19, the very beginning of 19, to talk about what that encouragement is. And it says this, Hebrews 6:19. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. So here is the encouragement that Hebrews is offering to us. Hey, I'm giving you all these challenges. How can I meet them? I don't know. No. Don't worry. There's hope. There's hope you can meet these challenges. There's hope that you can become who God wants you to be. There's hope. It's an anchor for your soul, firm and secure. So that's where we're going. But I do want to talk just a minute about hopelessness. Because we do love hope in America in particular. The Browns, positive thinking, whatever it is, like, oh, we can do it. And people who say this positive thinking, everything's good, everything's going to work out just fine, you know what they're doing to you? They're lying. Everything's not necessarily going to work out okay. Like, why is someone telling you, when someone tells you, like, oh, I know it's going to work out, why? Why do you think it's going to work out? Have you opened your eyes? Have you seen the brutality of this world? I'm not channeling Joel Osteen right here, right? Like, oh, no, Todd, this is America. No one's cheering me on right now. This is America. We're supposed to talk about positive things. But let's be realistic. There are lots of positive things. There's a beautiful day. We got a great summer day, right? A baby was born today. Shout out to the McCallums. Congratulations. Woo! This week, Tuesday, yes. And so they're wonderful things, but there's also a brutality. Afghanistan's been filling the headlines this week, right? All this just insanity. And this is like after 20 years of warfare. Ugh. Warfare, murder, stealing, disease, cancer, not being able to get along with people, even the people we love the most, our family maybe, we can't get along with, our spouse, our kids. Let's be honest, there's a lot of beautiful things in this world, but there's also a hidden brutality. And these things can really weigh us down and start making us feel pretty hopeless. Do we need hope? Oh my gosh. Man, you look at what is happening, you think, yes, I do. Let me quote one poet. One poet said this. Here's a cheery thought for you. Each new morn, it's a new day. Each new morn, new widows howl. New orphans cry. New sorrows strike heaven on the face. That's not a cheery thought. You know who wrote that? Tyler Childress, maybe? Chance the Rapper, maybe? Like these people who think deeply about life and see, like, you know what? There's some really messed up stuff in this life. Each new morn, new widows howl. Oh, what will happen today? Someone will become a widow today. New orphans will cry. Someone will lose their parents today. New sorrows strike heaven on the face. It's actually a quote from Shakespeare, another poet, along with those other folks. But lots of poets have said lots of similar things to this, because what do poets do about life? They think deeply, and they think below the surface. And people who think deeply come to these conclusions. Everything's not going to be okay. There's no promise for that. Life is not all going to work out in the end. In the end, you're dirt. That's what happens in the end. The mortality rate is 100%. Thanks, Todd. Glad I could show up and give you that. But let's be real, okay? There's all these people playing games and everything, trying to deny this. How do people handle this? Some people turn to drugs and drink and whoring around. It's actually not that bad idea after what I just laid out. There's a lot of sense to that. Eat, drink, and be merry. Life sucks. I'm going to die. Let me at least feel good for a minute. There are some serious drawbacks to that way of life. People who've lived that way don't last long. They actually don't live very long. They're like, this is killing me. And a lot of people turn away from it because they're like, this is just not good for me, and there's got to be something more. But only some people do that. There are some people who are much more sophisticated than that, much more upright than the, no. I know how to take on life and its brutality. Relentless achievement, progress, improvement. I've got to go get this degree, then this degree, then this degree, then this car, then this car, then this car, then this house, then that house, then that house. I've always got to be achieving more. I don't want to end up like that drunk, drug addict, whoring person. I'm much better than they. But this sort of lifestyle has its own drawbacks. Constant anxiety, constant worry. Have I gone far enough? I know I haven't because someone has a nicer car than I do. Someone has more status at work than I do. Someone has nicer clothes than I do. Oh, I got to work harder. 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 This is the promise of the American dream. But where does it lead? It doesn't really get us where we need to go. All those folks still end up at the same place. Maybe some of those people doing the drugs and the drinking, the whoring, are laughing at the other folks. Like, you guys are working so hard, and yeah, you got a nice car, but you're going the same place I am. And at people's deathbeds, they're realizing no matter how much pleasure they sought, they were never filled. They still have an ache. They couldn't quite deaden the ache the whole way. And the people who are achieving all their lives still are wondering, at their deathbed, did I do enough? Was it enough? And it's wild because both sorts of people, if you ask them any kind of meaningful question about like, hey, is there life more than just this? We're born, we live, we die. Is there anything more than that? And people just don't have an answer. The most confident person doesn't have an answer. The most sophisticated, achieving person doesn't really have much of an answer that makes any kind of sense. Circle of life. How comforting is the circle of life? Not much comfort to you on your deathbed, I don't think. I don't think it's much comfort to those loved ones you leave behind. Hey, you too can turn to dirt someday. Hope, that's what we're talking about. That's what the Bible is talking about. Hebrews 6:19 says, we have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. Hope sounds good. Firm and secure sounds good. What does it mean? An anchor for the soul. Our bodies, what is a soul? We'll get to that in a second, okay? But our bodies, we all know what our bodies are, right? Our bodies need things. We need food. We need water. What happens when we haven't eaten for a while or we haven't drank for a while? We get hangry. We get thirsty. Our whole body is telling us like, hey, see that food over there? Go get some. Hey, see that drink over there? Go get some. Our whole body is just crying out saying, I need this. It's obvious. Our bodies stop working without these things. Our souls are the same. This ache and despair and anxiety and longing, those are all elements of the soul. The soul representing life, the soul it's the spiritual realities, that we are spiritual beings as well. It's our psychological needs. It's our emotional needs. And these are just as real as our physical needs. So we want hope. That's what we need. That's what our soul craves more than anything else. Hope. And this passage says there's a hope that will provide an anchor that will make us firm and secure. Think about an anchor. Mostly what I think about an anchor is when, like, down in St. Augustine, everyone has their boats anchored, right? So they don't, like, drift away, so they don't crash into each other. So that's good, useful to have an anchor. It was also necessary to have anchors so you could not get lost, not go off course. If there's a big storm coming, wind and waves, and you're not going to be able to sail through it back in the day, drop anchor, ride out the storm, drop your sails, and stay there so you don't get off course, so you don't get lost, blah, blah, blah. It also could save your life in terms of, hey, there's a shore over there, and it's full of rocks, and we don't want to have our boat smashed against the rocks. during a storm. So you drop an anchor. And what does the anchor do? It goes down through water and hits what? The bottom. The bottom of the lake, the bottom of the sea, whatever it is. And it grabs onto something firm. And then that firmness is transferred to the boat. And what God is saying is that there is a hope that is firm and secure. And as that we anchor to that, we don't have to have despair. Nor do we have to lie to ourselves that if I can just get a bigger car, everything will work out. We can have actual stability and security because of where the anchor is. Pretty cool. Ephesians 4 pictures being tossed about on waves to and fro. It's a picture of immaturity being tossed about because these people don't know what they think or what they believe. They're not sure of it. And Paul is saying to them in Ephesians 4, grow as maturity, grow together, love each other, know what's true, act on it, and then you'll be mature and you won't be tossed back and forth. And again, this is what it means to be anchors, to be, oh, I know what I think. I know I believe. I'm confident in this. So, this raises the very important question of, is there actually hope? Is there a bottom of the sea that we can access somehow? So I'm going to offer two evidences that there is indeed hope. And speaking of thirst, my mouth is getting really dry, so I don't know if there's a bottle of water there or somewhere. Heidi, you got something? Yeah, all right. I didn't think about that when I got up here. All right, the question, is there hope? I'm going to offer two evidences. The first evidence is an argument from reason. Here's what I'm trying to say. Either our souls will never be filled, or there is a God who fills them. So we have these longings that people pursue in lots of different ways. And I'm saying either they're never going to be fulfilled, or God is going to fulfill them. What is the evidence that they will be fulfilled? One of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis, author of Chronicles of Narnia, but also a lot of other great books that are about the Christian faith. He talked about this precisely. And he talked about the progress that modern culture is so proud of, all the technological improvements we have. And of course, he didn't know about self-driving cars, let alone smartphones. He didn't know about that, but he knew the pride of humanity. Look how far we've come. Yet, here's what he said. Do what they will, then, regarding progress. Go ahead, make as much progress as you want. We all remain conscious of a desire which no natural happiness will satisfy. But is there any reason to suppose that reality offers any satisfaction to it? So if we're honest with ourselves, we'll all say, yeah, I have this hunger. I'm not satisfied. Well, does that prove anything that we have this hunger? Someone might say, this is C.S. Lewis again, nor does the being hungry prove that we have bread. So I'm hungry. I don't have any bread here. I'm thirsty. I had to ask for water. I don't have any water. Okay, so me being thirsty doesn't prove that I have water in front of me. But, C.S. Lewis continues, I think it may be urged that this misses the point. A man's physical hunger, thank you so much. A man's physical hunger does not prove that the man will get any bread. I did get water. Thank you, babe. But me getting water wasn't proven. What is proven, I may die of starvation or thirst on a raft in the Atlantic, but surely a man's hunger does prove what? It proves that he comes of a race which repairs its body by eating and inhabits a world where eatable substances exist. Are you following this argument? The fact that I'm thirsty means there is water. The fact that we long for something means it's missing because we were designed to have it. That's evidence. He concludes, in the same way, though I do not believe, I wish I did, that my desire for paradise, heaven, having an anchor on something firm, that my desire for that proves that I shall enjoy it. I don't know if I'll get it, but I think it is a pretty good indication that such a thing exists. and that some people will experience it. Religion is all about a better place, whatever religion is. Why does everyone have this thirst for that? C.S. Lewis is saying that's an argument for why there actually is a place. There is a paradise. There is a God who can satisfy you. All right. Second piece of evidence. I hope I didn't just throw out my notes. Second piece of evidence from the Bible. Here we go. Hebrews 6:12. I read this earlier. I'm going to read it again. Don't be lazy and useless, but imitate those who through faith and patience inherit what was promised. Imitate those who through faith and patience. So there are these people we should imitate who had faith. And then he goes on in verse 13 to describe what that faith looks like. So I'm going to read from Hebrews 6:13 to 15. When God made his promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater for him to swear by, he swore by himself, saying, I will surely bless you and give you many descendants. And so after waiting patiently, Abraham received what was promised. Okay, so God makes a promise. He swore it. There was no one else greater than God, so he's like, I'll swear by myself. And he made a promise, I will surely bless you and give you many descendants. And so after waiting patiently, Abraham received what was promised. What is he talking about? Well, when Abraham, we went by Abram then, but when Abraham was 75 years old, God appeared to him and said, I want you to go to this new country. And he made a promise to Abraham. And he says, I will bless you and make you a great nation, and all peoples on the world, on the earth will be blessed through you. He said some other things, but that's the gist of it. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make a great nation out of you. A lot of people are going to come from you. In fact, out of you, blessings to the entire world will come. Abraham was 75 when that happened. Years passed. Abraham and his wife hadn't had a child before that. They hadn't had a child after that. What's kind of a problem if you want to become a great people and you can't have kids? It's kind of difficult. And he's like, well, maybe I'll adopt some kids or whatever else. Other creative solutions. God's like, nope, it's through Sarah. You're going to have your own kid. Yeah, someone's laughing. I won't get into that. All right. So God appeared to him again to reiterate his promise. A lot of time had passed. And he said, look up at the sky, Abraham, and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, so shall your offspring be. That's quite it. Dude has no children, and God says, you're going to have children as many as the stars in the sky. Genesis 15:6 says, Abraham believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. He's an example of what we should be like. He believed God. God said it. He'd already been waiting for some years, but God said it. He's like, there you go. I believe you, God. Then another 15 or so years later, we don't really know, but it seems like a good period like that. God tells Abraham to sacrifice. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you. He has a kid. His name is Isaac. He and his wife have a kid. They're 100 years old. She's 90 or something like that. Amazing, a miracle. God's promise came true. Woo! God was faithful to his promise. Abraham's faith was rewarded. And then, about 15 years after he was born, God says, I want you to go sacrifice your son. What do you mean, sacrifice? Go take him and put him on a rock and grab a knife and cut blood, just with animals, you sacrifice them. This is like a religious thing. People sacrifice animals because they recognize that, maybe the gods are mad at me or something. Maybe blood has to be shed because I'm a guilty person. I don't know, that. Take Isaac, my son, who's the promised one, who's fulfilling the promise you gave me, and kill him. Right. Got it. So there's so much to this story. I can't get into all why God would ask him to do that, why Abraham did it. But just stay with me just for the sake of this. Abraham gets up there, got the knife. He goes up on this mountain with his son, has the knife. He's a faithful dude. He's like, God told me to do it. Hebrews actually says, he reasoned. He's like, God said I was going to have a great nation through Isaac. Hebrews says he reasoned that God would be able to raise him from the dead. Because I know the promise is going to come true. And Isaac did what no parent can even think about. I'm going to stop doing that. It's so horrible. But right before he went down, God, an angel shouted out and said, "Stop! Don't go through with it." And there was an animal caught in the bush, and he said, "Go sacrifice that animal." God provided a sacrifice. He didn't have to kill his son. How could Abraham have such faith? I mean, that's crazy, right? To wait all those years, to stay faithful. I mean, he wasn't perfect, but that's pretty remarkable. And then to take that action. How could he have such faith? It's very simple, actually. God said it would be so, and he believed it. He trusted it. This is not rocket science. God told me. God said he's going to make a great nation. I believe it. He knew God was faithful. It says there was no one greater for him to swear by. He swore by himself. God's swearing by himself. God can do whatever he wants. He's going to come through. He knew the character of God. He knew that somehow he knew or he trusted that God was going to come through. And God did come through. He had a baby named Isaac. Isaac came back from the dead in a sense because he didn't have to sacrifice him. God provided another sacrifice. And then he had a larger family. And then Abraham died. But you know what's happening still now to this day? Over 4,000 years later? God's promise to Abraham is still being fulfilled. We are children of Abraham, those of us who have put our faith in the same God that Abraham had faith in. God says, be patient, imitate him. Like he was patient. He was patient for 25 years. He was patient for 15 years. God's been being patient for 4,000 years. I'm going to make it happen. Trust me on this. I'm good. All right. Let me keep going to Hebrews 6, verses 16 and 17. People swear by someone greater than themselves, and the oath confirms what is said and puts an end to all argument. Because God wanted to make the unchanging nature of his purpose very clear to the heirs of what was promised, he confirmed it with an oath. So this is saying, first of all, God promised, and then he took an oath. Because he's just like, that. Let's just end all arguments. Well, you promised, yeah, but how do you blah, blah, blah. Did you pinky promise? Did you swear to God? Like, these are the kind of oaths we take, right? Back in the day, they took their oaths real seriously, and people would take an oath by their God. That's what they do. I swear by my God, blah, 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 that I will follow through and pay you the money I owe you. And, I don't know, they probably didn't shake hands, but that was it. They shook hands effectively, right? Oath. You're on the hook. Not only are you on the hook, but your God is on the hook. And if you don't come through for me, you're going to make him look really bad. God is taking an oath. And I think this is partly about that oath about Melchizedek that Kyle talked about a couple weeks ago. So pretty wild in that sense. But here's the thing. God was taking a risk. He was putting his name on the line. He says, I'm going to make it happen, and I swear by myself. I swear my own reputation, my own name. How much of a risk is that for God? Well, on one hand, it's like, why would he do that? Why would he put his name on the... I mean, it's in the book. We can read it now. He made that promise. He still has to come through on that promise. We can hold him to that promise. Why would he expose himself like that? Well, he's God. He can make happen whatever he wants to happen. Why did Abraham faith? Because he's like, but he's God. How can we have faith like Abraham's? Well, because God said. And we know God is good. And we know he's rewarded our previous steps of faith. So we're confident he's going to reward us in the future. That's pretty cool. God did this so that by two unchangeable things, verse 18, in which it is impossible for God to lie. God can't lie. He is God. And he can make it happen exactly what he said. To what end did he make this promise? What does it have to do with me? So I said it's been 4,000 years. What does this have to do with us? Well, we need to keep reading in verse 18. Hebrews 6:18. God did this so that, by two unchangeable things, we who have fled to take hold of the hope set before us may be greatly encouraged. God made this promise so that we could be greatly encouraged. Who is we? It specifies. It's not every single person. There's a very specific group who can be encouraged by this. We who have fled to take hold of that hope. Another translation talks about a refuge. We have fled to, we who have taken refuge. That's what Abraham did. He said, I'm 75 years old. I'm 100 years old. I'm not going to have a baby outside of God. There's no way I'm going to have a son that I'm sacrificing outside of God. Are we desperate? Do we see that life is brutal? Yeah, there are lots of wonderful things, lots of fun things. Even you young folks who haven't, like, your bodies haven't started breaking down and all that. Us old folks know life is brutal. I mean, if you're old and you don't know life is brutal, woof. We'll talk. Come talk to me. I got to hear what you have to say about that. But young folks, no, life's not brutal. You got everything going on. You got health. You get good looking. You got your energy. All this stuff. And yet, young people are besieged with anxiety and depression. Why is that? Because even the strength of youth, we realize it's not going to solve all my problems. So the question is for each one of us here tonight. This is the call that God has been making for centuries, for millennia. Do you know you're desperate? Do you want to flee for refuge, for safety, for security? And God's offer is to say, if you want to, come. All right, let's turn to the last question. What is hope? What is the encouragement? What is the anchor of the soul? I've been saying there's a hope, but what is it? Is it just good feelings? Is it fairies, blue fairies, pink fairies? What is it? We have to keep reading in Hebrews 6, 19 and 20. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. It enters the inner sanctuary behind the curtain, where our forerunner, Jesus, has entered on our behalf. He has become a high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. All right, that may not be entirely clear what that hope is, so let's break this down. We have a hope as an anchor for the soul. We've talked about that. The hope enters the inner sanctuary behind the curtain. What is this talking about? The sanctuary, it was talking about the temple of God. The curtain separated, there were multiple curtains in the temple, separating, like, hey, don't come in here. You dirty Gentiles, stay out. Okay, if you're, this person, you can come in. If, there are all these rules about getting past various curtains or whatever, but there was one curtain between the Holy of Holies. And this Holy of Holies place, and we're going to talk in more detail as we continue on in our study in the Hebrews, because it talks about this in a lot of details coming up. But the Holy of Holies was where the Ark of the Covenant was. Yeah, Indiana Jones, Ark of the Covenant. Well, it really wasn't his. It was the one he was searching for, right? And what was so significant about this, there was a curtain over the Ark of the Covenant because there were two, figurines of angels with wings over it. And, they weren't angels. They were cherubim. Cherubim, I think. Seraphim. One of those. Anyway, the point is, over them, they were facing the presence of God. The presence of God. And when the Hebrews they put together the first tabernacle with a curtain, a big cloud came on top of the temple, the tabernacle, and the same thing happened with the temple, and showed God's glory is now here. This is the place where my glory will dwell, says God. And it was in this one specific spot over the Ark of the Covenant, this little just box. That's all Ark of the Covenant meant. It was a box that had some stuff in it. And over that, the covenant was his promise. But anyway, over that was his glory was dwelling there. And here's the thing about that curtain is that not anyone could go in the curtain. Only one person, the high priest, could go there, and only one time a year. And if he didn't do it the right way, he would die. Why? Because it's not so easy, such an easy thing to waltz into the presence of God. I think we all have a sense of this too. Oh, I'd love to see God. I'd love to be with him, but then it's like, whoa, but could I handle that? I haven't always followed God that well. In fact, I haven't even believed in God a lot. I've actually been like, I think I know better than you, God. Maybe I don't want to go into that presence of God. But what's saying is our hope has gone there. Let me keep reading. It's gone behind that curtain, the hope. What is that hope? Verse 20. where our forerunner, Jesus, has entered on our behalf. He has become a high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to go. I want to have life. I don't want to die. I want to have hope. But I can't go in that curtain. I'd die for sure if I went in there. Don't sweat it. Jesus is our forerunner. A forerunner was like a term back in that day. It'd be like, if you're in an army, you'd send a forerunner party to scout out ahead. You'd go ahead and clear the way for the army following. It's saying Jesus has cleared a way so that we can enter that curtain without fear. Why? Because he was a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. And Kyle, when he talked about this 2 weeks ago, told us a priest is the one who mediates, is the party in between us and God. And he mediated, and he did offer a sacrifice, and it wasn't Isaac, and it wasn't a lamb. It was himself, a perfect human being, perfectly faithful to God. And he offered his own life, and his sacrifice offers cleansing for any who put their hope in him, for any who take refuge in Jesus. Now we can be in the presence of God. We don't have to come on our own like, oh, am I good enough? We come on Jesus being good enough. We come because he is now before the Father, interceding on our behalf in heaven right now. So yeah, there was this tabernacle and temple here, but that's not the real thing. Where God is in heaven, a spiritual place. And Jesus is now with the Father. He's paved the way so that being born and dying and turning to dust is not the end. That is not life. We all know that. We all know life is more than that. We all know that life should go on beyond that. And Jesus has gone into the presence of God and is saying, you can follow me if you take refuge in me. This is good news, great news. And it's actually more evidence. The Bible is telling a story for 2,000 years. 40 different authors telling one consistent story. Hebrews was written about 2,000 years after this stuff I was reading to you about Abraham. How did they get their stuff together? I work with people. We can't get our stuff together any given day. We can't be on the same page. How much work is that, right? These guys were on the same page 2,000 years later. How is that possible? God was behind the story. God is behind the story. Here's something else, some more evidence for you. Who would even make up a story like this? Here's the story. We, people, have abandoned God. He didn't abandon us. We abandoned him because we rebelled against God. We thought we knew better than him. We were unwilling to come down off our throne. I have my own throne. Thank you, God. I'll decide what I think is right and wrong. Oh, you have some advice for me, God? Let me hear it. I'm interested. Come, bow before me, God. This is what we do. God says, I spoke, Abraham believed. How often are we not that way? God spoke, and yeah, but that's rebellion. And that's what we did to God. And some of us are much more outward about it, but if we are honest with ourselves, every single one of us has sat in judgment over God and said, let me think about that, God. What would you do if you were God and some little ant made you uncomfortable or just bothered you? Squish that ant. Or you just say, you're a stupid ant. I'll just let you go on with your life, miserable life, eating sand and rocks and whatever you do as an ant is really not a very good life. Maybe they get some nice food. They come into my kitchen, steal some food. It's not a very nice life. So that's true. That's kind of what it's like. But that was not God's response. Instead, God said, you know what? My beloved son whom I love and who loves me, I'm going to send him into this broken, brutal world where people fall apart and die and screw each other and mess with each other and hurt each other from the time they're born to the time they die. And God said, I'm going to send my son into these rebellious people. I'm going to die for them, said Jesus. so I don't have to squash them, so they can enter my presence. I extend this to you, that this is evidence this story is from God. Who would think of this? Romans 5 says, you know what? Some people might die for a very good person. Oh, yeah, we watch these movies. Someone dying for the hero, someone dying for their spouse, right? I'll die for you, my beloved. And they offer their life. We're like, yeah, that's good, that's good. And we all like, yeah, that's cool. People have thought of that story. You know what story no one ever thought about except for God? Ever. You're my enemy. And I'm going to die for you. This is what God is saying. There's a hope. This is why God is saying there's a refuge. Will you flee to that refuge? Right now, tonight, anywhere, you can call out to God and say, God, I have thought I know better than you. And I'm sorry. I come off my throne. Let me get before your throne and hear what you have to say. Thank you for sending Jesus to take the punishment, the smashing that I deserve. Thank you that he lived a life of faithfulness so that I could become a faithful person, so that I could enter into your presence, so that life could truly be life. I think what I'm saying is from God. It's crazy. I'm just some dude standing on some platform. Like, what is that? But what I'm saying is, based on what I've said, I've laid out a proof, I believe, and evidence. Conclude that God is calling out to you. He's been working this plan for 4,000 years, plus he's been working from eternity. Why? For you. Because he wants you to be with him. He wants to be the forerunner for you, to take you into the presence of God, to make that hope sure, to be that solid ground that your life can be anchored to. Please consider just calling out to God now, saying, I want that. You still have some questions. Like, man, this sounds compelling, but I don't know. I don't quite understand it all. Talk to the person who brought you. Ask. It's incredible hope that God is offering. What does this mean for the rest of us? The outworking of our hope. Going back to Hebrews 6:10. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. That was what Adam covered last time. But now we get it, right? What is God encouraging us to do? To have hope in him. What does it look like when we do have hope in him? We work hard at loving God as we help his people and continue to help them. God will not forget your work and the love you have shown him. We show God love. How? As you have helped his people and continue to help them. I'm sure all of us walked in here, all of us who have fled to Jesus and found our refuge in him, and have walked in here with some things weighing us down today or tonight. I hope that you've been encouraged by what God is saying to you. How do we respond? Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep anchored in him. Remember that we fled to him. And then we will have a weight, a stability that can lead to a useful life. Not drinking and drugging and whoring. Not looking down our nose at people who drink and drug and whore and say, I'm better than that. I'm going to build a meaningful, useless life of getting stuff and accumulating status so I can feel better, or being my best self. None of that will come to anything meaningful. You know what will come to something meaningful? Is loving another person in the name of Jesus and making an eternal impact, loving God by doing that. This is what hope does. It brings us that significance. It comes out of it. So as we say, oh, I'm coming to home church tonight, I'm coming to see team night, I don't know. I'm tired. Life's hard. I'll sit back and just see if someone loves me. Well, I know I should love other people. It's You know how I know this? Because this is the dialogue I've had, far too many times in my own head. But when we're in touch with this, when we're in touch with God and His hope, that changes everything, doesn't it? I had a hard day. But you know what? My anchor is in Jesus. My hope is in Jesus. He is before the Father interceding for me. He is my forerunner. The Holy Spirit dwells in me. I have a taste of God now, and I'll be with Him forever. Hey, how's it going? Now I can get outside myself. Now I can think about someone else. It just happened. It's beautiful. And that is what will make us a beautiful Freedom Fellowships. Loving each other in our fellowship groups, coming together as a fellowships, sharing our excitement and our love, picking each other up because life is brutal. Life is hard. And we do forget this, and reminding and encouraging each other exactly of these truths that we're talking about now, or the truths that we read elsewhere in the Bible. This is a sure hope. I'll stop there. All right. Oh, Adam's coming up. Questions, comments?
Yeah, no questions actually. Text it in, Todd. So I'll just encourage people to share out here. Ryan, if you want to put a mic out there, do some in-person questions.
You got to be brave to come up there and I'll wait. I bet someone's got something to share that could edify us.
Hey Todd, good job, man. I wanted to just kind of say something about what you were talking about with that anchor, and how cool that is to be a part of that. Because as some people know, I was one of the people who did drift away for a while. I didn't have my anchor down, but I was the drinking and drugging and whoring. Is that what you called it?
Yeah.
But but living that life, you really do feel like, you could just get us so far away from what God has to offer, and you're so, as you kind of you illustrated, stuck out at sea, and that's what it feels like, not having anything to hold on to, nothing. Your last friend that you had 2 months ago, could have maybe never heard from him in that whole time, and you're just desperate to keep finding anything that makes you feel good or feel happy. But then when you have something like this, all these people and all these relationships that are so much more meaningful than anything you've ever had, and then also you have the promise from God that He loves you no matter what you've done. He's just gonna remain faithful to you no matter what you do to Him. It's just the most coolest feeling you could ever have. I'm just so thankful for all you guys, and for everything that the Lord has provided in my life. And I don't know. That's my advocate for the anchor that is in Jesus.
Very. Oh, excuse me.
I was just saying I don't have any questions.
All right. That's beautiful, Shane. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, man. Very well said. God is good. I'll wait out. I bet someone's got something. I bet the Spirit is putting something on somebody. Hi. How are you, Alexa?
Good.
It is. Come a little closer, maybe, so they can, hear you.
It's a good song. Hope is interesting to me because I don't have a lot of it. I have to pray all the time for hope.
Yeah.
Especially with coming from a family of non-Christians and non-believers. It's hard because I think about heaven and that that I might not see a lot of my family there, and it sucks, and it makes me feel hopeless for them. Um, and in those times, like I'll really turn to God, and I'll lament, and I'll be like, "Why is this happening? Like, why can't you just show me something?" And the next day, I'll get a text from like my brother asking me how I am, and I'm like, "Oh, there, all right, cool."
Yeah.
And he just has been providing in a lot of small ways recently, and given me like a heart to continue to work for them, work towards them. So hope is important. It's important to pray for it. And
Right on. All right. Well said. Yeah, I think that's part of the toughness of this world is seeing people we love and care about who don't know Christ. And you're like, no, I'm not that interested. And you're like, what? And I think God, Paul wrestled with that. He said, I have bitter sorrow and unending grief. Like this is hard for to have it. And God, I think what God would say is like, yeah, that's how I feel. But just go love. And it is hard to love and get turned down. And, we're not told to force anything down anyone's throat. God gives people choices. He gives us this incredible, powerful thing that God has given us the choice. And people have their own choice. And at the end of the day, our job is to tell the truth, but that's leave it there. And if someone wants to hear, they can. If someone wants to reject it scarily, they can. God has given them that choice. But I think your point about just faithfully moving in there is a great example of imitating Abraham, right? Waiting, putting up with hardship, putting up with disappointment, and saying, but you know what? I know God's going to be faithful to his word. I know he's going to empower me to share the gospel. I don't know if we have a guarantee about any individual person becoming a Christian, but we are guaranteed that God will use the church to bring people to Christ, for sure. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Hakes.
Hey, it is really intimidating.
You
I
may
was
have
in
to
the back.
raise that a little bit so people can
I?
hear you,
Oh,
or just pick it up.
here we go.
There
Hey
you go.
guys. Oh, that is loud. Yeah. So this is a timely teaching for me. I really like the illustration of the anchor. Um, it's something that I've been talking about for a while. Is this idea that when there's storms or conflicts or whatever, it's insane to keep the anchor inside the boat. If you want to be anchored, you have to toss it out of the boat. Same thing with yourself. You can't rely on yourself to get yourself through something.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, and you end up lost real fast. And it's been one of those. Been just one of those weeks, New apartment, new home church sphere, new boss. Everything is new. I don't have my routine anymore. I don't have anything. Like I have God, and that's been so comforting and like scary to a point where I know that if I was alone in any of this, that I would be so far gone, in just like where my headspace is and any sense of stability. But having him and having that reassurance and especially in just the law and the prophets, it's been incredible just to see that consistent nature of who he is and his love for us.
Yeah.
It was sorry, I don't mean to keep going, but there's one more thing, and this is important. It was on my way to Alliance today. I was listening to a Timothy Keller teaching, and he was talking about some of this stuff, and it was this idea of living inside out, and whatever it was that he was talking about is this idea of suffering and how it's so easy to lose sight unless you lose sight of somebody until it becomes an inconvenience, and that's where you can really qualify and quantify that love for somebody, is in your willingness to go outside of your comfort zone for them. And it just like it hit me for my entire morning of just that reflection on Christ being on the cross and having that willingness to suffer for me and have that reassurance of his love for me. And so again, it's that anchoring outside of myself that just really adds that value where again I've just been lost. So
Yeah. Right on. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that vulnerability. I had nothing but God. That's not a bad place to be. I'm going to read the psalm because I've been tripping out on this, and I've shared it with some of you. But this is Psalm 13, and I've just found it so encouraging as I've been going through a very difficult time recently. Here's how it starts. How long, Lord? How long? Which, Alexis, that's kind of your question too, right? How long? Will you forget me forever? Wait, you can say that to God? Yeah, you can say it to God. In fact, it's in the Bible. Well, this is Bible on my phone. Isn't that crazy? God said, I want to put this in my Bible. Someone praying to me saying, how long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? Will you hide your face from me? It feels like that, right? And God's saying, yeah, I know it feels like that. And it's okay to ask me that. Because you know what you're doing when you ask him, how long, Lord? How long until you help me? You're taking refuge in him and asking that question because you're not just complaining, you're not raging, you're asking God. And the psalm ends, he says, but I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. And there's no indication that anything changed in the circumstance. It's like, how long, Lord? When will you turn back to me? But I trust in your unfailing love. I know you came through for me before. I know what your word and your promises say. I believe them. I'm confident. And I know what there is to come. Anyway, all right. Let me go ahead. I think I forgot to pray, so I'm going to pray now. And then we're done. Father, thank you for this wonderful, wonderful good news. Thank you that even though we doubt you and we rebel against you and we wonder where you are there pursuing us at every step, hearing our prayers, longing for us to take refuge in you so you can save us and rescue. Thank you so much for that. And again, I pray if anyone is here tonight who hasn't taken that step of asking Jesus to come into their life and save them, I pray they would take that step even tonight. And thank you so much for those testimonies there from Shane and Alexis and Hakes that are just a testimony to exactly what happens when we do that. That amidst all our craziness and still brokenness, you give us a hope and a security, an anchor that really changes our lives. Pray all these things and thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen.